You're working in an inpatient psychiatric facility. Then a global pandemic hits, and while your job is considered essential, you begin to have extreme fight, flight, or freeze responses to all the trauma. This is Sucker Punched. Today, my guest on the podcast is Kristina Harutoonian.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to have you here today, friend.
I'm so excited to be here. Well, here in my room. While
That's
you're
right.
there.
Podcasting, the OG social distancing.
That's right.
So we're going to jump right in, and I am curious to hear, how has the development and spread of COVID-19 affected you?
I think for me, I had a little bit of an interesting time because right before all of the regulations and the safer at home order took place, I had just gone through a breakup, and it was like great timing. I had to drive down to Orange County to get my brother and then drive up. And then I was hearing about all this news. And I think I kind of had disbelief and shock in the beginning. So I wasn't fully processing everything. And then, once I got home and things slowed down, I remember I was driving to work. And because I'm still working because I'm essential business in mental health care. And I started crying, and I was like, man, it's 7:30. Why am I already crying? Normally that's later, and I couldn't, yeah, that's like for 5:30. No. And I couldn't place like what exactly was going on. And I realized I was grieving, and I read one of your tweets, and it was like, oh, that feeling you're feeling is grief. And I was like, oh yeah. And so when I processed like all the loss and what was going on with COVID, as well as the loss of this relationship I had for a period of time, that's when all the tears flowed, but also I was able to like feel more in control. So it's definitely affected my family, my cousin. We suspected she had it. She has a heart condition, so she was in major quarantine. But thankfully she's good now. She was able to get meds and all that. And then at work, I work in mental health. And so they were telling us that there's 19,000 treatment facilities in Los Angeles. And so that could range from rehabs to any kind of mental hospital to a residential treatment to outpatient or whatever. And they're all cutting down on staff right now to prepare for the massive influx that they suspect will happen after this passes. So it's just a lot mentally, I think, to process for all of us. And thankfully I didn't lose my job, but for the people that have, and I think that it's just really hard.
Yeah. So you mentioned this one day just kind of bursting into tears and realizing it was grief. So what did that feel like in your mind, heart, and body? How did that, what you're calling grief, manifest itself?
So I feel like my body goes into extreme fight or flight mode very quickly when it's grief that I'm touching on, because I experienced it the most when my mom died. But my mom, she was a Muslim and converted to charismatic Christianity when I was like 6 or 7. And so she was very much the Christian role in my life, for which I'm truly thankful. She was the person who would go on the street and evangelize with church tracts, telling people they're going to go to hell if they need to receive Jesus. But now I can look back and be like, that woman was just not afraid of anything, even though I don't agree with her approach, right? But when she was sick, she believed that she was going to be healed. And because of that, she chose not to do treatment for a brain tumor. So she didn't do radiation and chemo, and she ended up passing away fairly quickly. Now looking back, I'm like, oh, my mom would not have done well as like a sick person for a long time. She was very vibrant. She would have driven us nuts. But no, obviously I wish she was still here. But so for me, the grief process and like sickness and being a Christian, it all took a long time for me to process that. And so when I experience some type of loss, I go into my body goes into like a flight mode, an escape, wanting to escape mode. I get a like elevated heart rate. I feel like I'm going to have a panic attack. And because my body thinks that I'm unsafe and my mind thinks I'm unsafe. And so I have to remind myself I am safe, like I'm not in danger. And that's kind of my immediate process. And then, I go through the emotion of that, I guess, until I'm at like a baseline back to, it's okay. Everything is okay.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That feeling of panic. Your body is yelling that you're in danger, even though there's no like bear chasing you up a tree or
right. But I sure feel like it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, but on the other hand, it's not like there is nothing to fear, right? A global pandemic like is a thing that's scary. So what are some of your fears?
I fear a lot for people who don't have the resources to be safe. So, I work with women who a lot of them are young, 18 to 25, and they are diagnosed with PTSD alongside other personality disorders often, and they come from an attempted suicide attempt. And so that's why they come to treatment. And that is costly, but also insurance covers it. But now there's this issue with insurance and, being isolated is the worst thing for someone with a mental health struggle or diagnoses, or however, you identify. Being isolated or losing a job or not having the means to provide for themselves is something that can cause very, it can make their lives very hard and unbearable. It can feel unbearable for them. So I really fear like, these vulnerable people, as well as women who are in, abusive households, families whose they lost their jobs and they have to provide for their kids. The fears for me are more related to like the vulnerable population, where I was scared for my cousin. I was scared for myself, but I think I felt less afraid for myself than for people I knew who were more vulnerable, because at some point in my life, I had been more vulnerable, like a few years ago mentally, Yeah.
Has this affected like your own mental health?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a level of anxiety that is kind of hovering, so to speak, that sometimes I don't know where it comes from. And I have to remind myself that it's most likely due to the fact that we're in a global pandemic and everything has changed. So that definitely has played a lot. But I'm thankful because I spent a long time trying to figure out my own emotions and tools to like deal with distressing emotions or like distress tolerance. And I think that I'm so thankful because I think everyone could use these tips and tools. And I wish I had known them earlier, but I'm thankful now. But that's helped my mental health a lot in this current state, I think.
What are some of the realities for you living in the time of a global pandemic?
My dad lives in England, and he is, I'm closest with him. I lived with him after my mom died for a few years when I struggled with very heavy depression and panic attack stuff. So he is a very important person in my life, and he's in England, unable to come get back here right now. He's there on a contract work, and he has to stay there. He was supposed to come back, but now it'll be longer. So I'm sad that my dad, who is older, is not here. I get worried and I call him all the time. I'm like, hey, but the joke is he's healthier than all of us. He's like, works out all the time. Yesterday, he goes, I'm obese. We're like, what are you talking about? And he's like, my stomach area, I only ran 4 miles. We're like, you're a psycho. I stood up from bed today, and that is my workout, like,
That's a half of a squat.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. I'm like, I walked from my room to the kitchen and got 7 steps in. That is doing a lot. So I'm sad that he's not here. I'm currently living at my aunt's house. So I probably will move out of my apartment. It just is expensive, and just this seems right. And then I have a younger brother, so he's here. Financially, I just have to work harder to provide, for myself in this time. My job is fairly stable. They've cut right now some stuff just to prepare, but that's, these are just like the realities, I guess, that you're like learning to cope with. I can't I got into the groove of performing stand-up, which I had never done before. And then I started to really like it and do these shows, and those all got canceled. But that's okay. Like, I'm sad that I don't get to do that right now, but yeah, it's okay.
How do you think that we can care for one another? Or what does compassion look like during this time?
I think we're all a little, I'm hoping, more thoughtful of other people's, like, where they're at. So like today I had to call the bank, and I was talking to the lady, and I'm like, hey, like, I have this charge. I don't know what it is. And, normally I truly do not care about the person from Bank of America on the phone. I'll be honest. Like, it's not really like big concern of mine. I just want to get the phone call done, And then in the end, she's like, is there anything else? And I was like, oh, thanks for working today so that I could get this sorted. And she's like, thank you. Are you safe? I'm like, yeah, I'm safe. Are you safe? And it was this nice little check-in, like a random person just checked in real quick with me. And I think being mindful that everyone is suffering to an extent with this, some more than others, and checking in with yourself and with someone else, like, goes a long way. So I hope that lasts. I hope that we don't forget that this did occur when we're out of it. And it's kind of a reminder for us to genuinely respect and value our life, other people, and the earth. The earth is thriving with us, like, not, driving everywhere. Yeah, it's crazy, especially in LA. The smog is not here. It's nuts.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you think that there is a way that we could, like, flex or strengthen our compassion muscles? That, like you said, when this is over, are we going to forget what it's like? Do you think there's a way that we can show compassion and kindness to each other that creates a permanent shift in how we relate to each other?
I think, I would say, I guess it starts with ourselves, right? So I am compassionate with the mental health advocacy community, or I don't know how to say it. I'm not always as good with my words as I am with writing, which I'm sure like you
Oh,
understand. But
I know I'm the same way.
but I have understand the pit of depression, like what that feels like at its lowest. So my compassion extends a lot more to people who I know have depression or going through it, or anxiety, and because I can relate. And so the thing about this is we're in a global pandemic. So there's a level where all of us can relate to each other because we're all dealing with this, which is kind of nuts that it's on this global level. But with that, then comes this ability for us to have great compassion for someone, because they, if you talk to someone, they're like, I lost my job from COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic scare. You'll be like, oh my God, that was a crazy time. Like, you have a level of understanding. So if we can practically put that into place with helping people with their needs, be it material or emotional, that I think is what compassion can look like after this or during this too.
You mentioned that you have certain tools or coping mechanisms that you have used in times when depression, panic, anxiety have been really heavy and challenging. What are some of those tools that you would encourage people to use if all of those feelings, if this heaviness is new to them?
So a lot of the therapy that I'm trained in that I use with the clients at work is called dialectic behavior therapy, or dialectic therapy. And there's, they have cognitive too, and other ones, but I particularly am trained in this, and it's holding two truths that could be seen as opposite at the same time. So it's like you can be scared and still do something, or you can feel depressed and still work out, or you could feel tired and happy at the same time. So it doesn't need to be black or white. And I think with the heaviness of all of this, the first thing is to acknowledge and validate that it is normal to feel that way. You don't need to try to feel any different. It's just feel that. And then, these tools help us learn how to navigate those feelings so that we move through them in a way that is healthy and helpful for us and for other people. I used to just like lash out at people, be like, I don't know what I'm feeling. And I would be like, I'm angry or I'm sad. I'd cry in like the Whole Foods aisle. I remember once because they didn't have like the nuts that I wanted. And I was like, why don't you have the nuts? This was right after my mom died. And I was like, wow, like what is going on? So some of the things are to acknowledge, like once you validate and acknowledge, this is the way I feel, you can write it down. You can journal just to get what is in your head out so that you can feel more in control. Because now oh, this is what's going on in my mind. Maybe I should have a little mercy or grace on my body and myself right now. Some of the things that you can do if you're feeling anxious is to focus on something that is like coloring, a crossword, Sudoku. It amazingly, this really helps. Like it distracts your mind and basically it takes you from an elevated emotional level, which we called emotion mind, back down to wise mind. So you're trying to just get back to baseline, but while acknowledging that everything you're feeling and going through is normal. And then journaling is what I have found to be the most helpful. Just write without caring what you're writing. Just write and write and write. It's funny because I can write and write and write. And then now when I'm told I have to write something to try to sell something, my brain just doesn't want to do it. You know, I'm like, when it's free reign, I'll do it, but that's something else. Yeah. And then, definitely reach out. I think that feels really difficult because sometimes we're judgmental on ourselves that we shouldn't feel this way. And we say that there's no should, that there's only like what you can do. What I have found really helpful is to write down the facts about something so that I stop assuming things. So like the facts about COVID that you actually know for your life right now, like you're safe in your house, things like that. And then what makes you feel happy is like things that you want to do. So for me, if I'm very stressed out, I'll turn on the TV and watch The Real Housewives. And I just do not care what anyone thinks. And
that's awesome.
And I just watch it because it's mindless. I don't care. It doesn't require, and they seem crazy. So I feel normal, but it's whatever it is for you, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm. What is one way that listeners could practice resilience and endurance?
Ultimately, you will get through what you're going through right now because life is continuous. There's something greater than you or I, whatever it is that you believe in, that has the world going around in a circle in this giant universe. And we're just these people on this thing that is somehow continuously moving. So people who have gone through difficult times, they move through because they have the capacity to. And it's I don't know how to say it in this like romantic way other than if you're going through it, you will get out of it and you will be able to tell that story because that is your story and that story is needed. It is so needed. I tell the girls at work who feel like the clients who feel like they've lost everything and they have no hope or whatever, it's like to see them go through 30 days or 60 days of whatever treatment. And they have the tools and resources and believe a little bit in themselves. They go on and they do so much. And it's like, I believe in all of you that you just got to show up for yourself in the smallest way possible. And if that just means waking up and saying, I got up today and I'm going to take a shower and that's what I'm going to do, then that is you showing up and that is you being resilient and getting through it. And the more that you believe in yourself, like with the baby steps, I think it's the way to like get through. And at some point you'll look back and be like, wow, I'm out of that. Or it may be something that you live with your whole life, but your mindset and perspective has purpose that is bringing you through in a greater way that is like even spiritual to an element where like, you have a bigger purpose to impact other people.
You can find Kristina online at her website, thedtrblog.com, or on Twitter and Instagram at the DTR Blog. Check out her YouTube channel, the DTR Blog. You can find me anywhere on social media at Becky L. McCoy or my website, beckylmccoy.com. Please share this episode with a friend and subscribe to Sucker Punched and leave a rating and review in iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. Let's continue to be resilient together.